Hey guys, TommyBryson here, and when it comes to money, you usually have three types of people. The person that's super crazy about money, they think it's super important, they budget, they invest, they do everything meticulously, okay? Then you have the person that's kind of like, oh, money's okay, whatever, I do this, I do that, invest in my 401k, but I don't really budget, kind of doesn't really think money is that important, but they respect money. But then you have the person that has no respect whatsoever for money, and they like to pretend like money doesn't really exist, and it's not really an issue until it becomes an issue, and then they need a tissue, okay? I'm a rhymer too. Now, by the way, the more I read the word, the more I read the Bible, the more I realize that, yes, although I read over 200 books on self-help and basically finance and money, I realized that I could have just read the Bible, and all that information could have just been found there in a very simple format. Because again, the Bible is written based on principles, and principles, they last forever. It's like gravity. Whether you live, for example, in the 1900s or, for example, today, if you jump off a building, you're gonna have the same results. That's gravity. That's a principle. That's a law of life. But when it comes to a lot of books out there, it's more just about tricks and tactics and different ways to do things. And as time passes, things progress, those different ways, they kind of become obsolete. But the lessons I've learned on money based on the Bible are really principles that last a lifetime. So in this video, I'm gonna give you my favorite three that help me out a lot. And just for perspective here, I'm very transparent when it comes to money. When I first started out investing, I had $7. Today I have over $200,000. I invest regularly, and I'm all about passive income and so on. So if you're interested in that, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you get notified. I am transparent about money, not embarrassed about money, and I love to teach people about money and how to manage money. Now, the very first thing, which is actually super important, is don't love money. And you might think, Tommy, you just said a bunch of stuff about money. I think you love money. The answer is no, I don't love money. I learned very early on from Warren Buffett that when it comes to money, money is kind of like a report card based on what you do. A lot of people, they chase the grades instead of chasing the actual subjects to basically enjoy the most. Let me explain here. What I mean is, if you dedicate yourself to do the labor or the task that you love the most, and you become the best at it because you kind of just love it. And when you love something, time doesn't really exist that much. So if you become the best at something, money is just going to be a natural progression of you getting a lot better at it. You'll make more. And that's how things basically work. And when I read the Bible, I think it's 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 10, you have, for example, for the love of money is the root of all evil. And that makes a lot of sense because I've noticed that when someone chases money and they're only interested in money, they tend to do a lot of things that I don't agree with. And on top of that, if they do accomplish that goal of getting a lot of money, they tend not to really enjoy as much. And they tend to have like an imbalanced lifestyle, which I don't like. To me, life is about health, love, also money, and also happiness. But I wouldn't really want to have one without the other, if you know what I mean. And my grandma always told me, not always, but I just recently started hearing this after she told me like years and years ago, but you know, sometimes it takes a little while to get the message in there. But she always says, Tommy, there are people out there that are so poor that all they have is money. And that makes a lot of sense. So my advice to you is this, okay? If you're interested in making money from your labor, look for something that you like, you're good at, and it's also going to make you money. For example, I love singing. I'm the expert when it comes to shower singing. If you heard me sing, you would not pay money for it. You might unsubscribe for the channel. So the idea is I probably wouldn't do that. But when it comes to teaching about money and wealth and paying off debt and helping people with the word or whatever, I like that. I love doing it. I'm good at it. So I get paid. But if I got paid half of what I make today, I would still do it. And you know how I know? Because I did it for free for like the first 10 years. And when you love something, you tend to keep doing it, and it tends to work out in the end. It requires faith, but it works out. Now, number two, guys, is this. Lessons about debt. There are three things when it comes to debt. And one thing is, I learned that being too smart can be kind of dangerous because you kind of just feel like, I'm smart enough, I can just do whatever I want. And my initial idea was, I'm very smart when it comes to money, I'm very smart when it comes to numbers, and I'm very stupid when it comes to understanding that although I think this can happen, and I have no control over that, if you know what I mean, okay? So when it comes to money, I have a hard time not having any debts. Like naturally, I incline towards leverage. I like to use other people's money to make more money and not use my own money and just make more money. But then the Bible says, for example, the debtor is slave to the lender. It also says, for example, when it comes to debt, never be a guarantor for someone. And lastly, you pay back your debts. Those are Proverbs, also some Psalms in there. And overall, it makes a lot of sense. And I have a lot of stories to back this up. So for example, the very first thing is leverage. Leverage is basically when, let's just say, for example, you want to use other people's money, aka OPM. So I go to the bank, I borrow some money, I buy some real estate, somebody rents it, they pay the mortgage, and I think everything's fine because I am making money because I have no money in this deal. That sounds great, right? But in reality, you're still the one that's responsible for that loan. If you have, for example, a vacancy, you have to pay for that. If something happens to the house, it's your responsibility. So overall, I'd rather get to the dance a little slower, but get there and not be worried about basically getting told because, you know, I can't really afford my debts. You know, that's my main thing. So for me, when it comes to debts, I agree. You know, you have no debt, you have a fully blown emergency account, you start investing and you start to try to pay off your house as fast as possible. And if you have basically all these things checked off, you live a life where you're kind of free in a sense financially, you know, because freedom comes from the God. But overall, you're free. In a sense, like financially, you're not bound to anyone. The money you make is your money, and you don't have to worry about giving it to somebody else, if you know what I mean. Now, number two, when it comes to debt, also, never be the guarantor. I had a client once, and he tells me, Tommy, you know, I bought all this furniture for my girlfriend and so on. I'm like, okay, your girlfriend, all right, cool. And they bought all this furniture. Turns out it didn't work out. Turns out he owes all the money for the furniture, and turns out he's upset about it. So he said, I'm not paying any of her furniture, and she kept the furniture, of course. And guess what happened? His credit is basically ruined, and that sucks overall. But the idea is, you know, the Bible says, which is actually very interesting in Proverbs, it says, if you already agreed to be the guarantor of somebody else, go to the lender and beg to have your name written off. I see this a lot with parents. They try to buy their kids cars they can't afford, try to sign up for student loans the kids can't afford. The answer is, don't do it. If that person is not being approved, it has to be for a reason. And guess what? Usually, there always tends to be another way. There's always a cheaper car. There's always another way to get the education, whether it's scholarships, going to community college. There's always a way. It doesn't require you going into a mountain of debt and also dragging somebody else along with you. And lastly, when it comes to paying back debts, I realized that there are a lot of people out there, they're very happy borrowers in the initial part, but they're actually very sour payer back of debt. I've seen that so much. I've lent people money. I remember, for example, I have an uncle. I won't mention his name, of course, but I have an uncle and I lent him some money. And all of a sudden, I was the uncle in the relationships because there was such a level of respect for me. And he wouldn't even answer my calls anymore because he was so embarrassed. It changes the relationship. So when it comes to lending money, I don't lend money. If you need money and I have money to give, I will give you the money, but I am not interested in lending money. It changes the relationship, and by far, if you do owe money, you want to be a happy repayer of that money. That person helped you out, whether it's an institution, whether it's a credit card, they helped you out when you needed it, right? So you pay it back. And if you can't pay it, you gave your face, okay? You show responsibility and say, hey, I can't pay you back. I want to pay you back. Look at the math. Can't do it, but I'm working on it. And you show your face. The people that hide, that run, that scurry from their debts, that's not what you want to be. You want to show your face, even if it is embarrassing. And trust me, I know what that feels like. Now, number three is listen to wise counsel. Advice is something that's freely given. So sometimes you actually get a lot for free, which is actually pretty awesome, okay? It's like if you talk to a rich guy and he tells you, hey, you know what you should do? Put your money in here and you do this and you do that. And they give you amazing advice. You just got that for free. It's free advice. But because advice is also freely given, you can also get advice from people that don't really know what they're talking about. So it can actually be a very expensive thing because something that is freely given but has a cost associated with it and anyone can give it to you can also be, for example, very costly. So my advice is very simple. If I follow this rule, which is basically, I want the person that's giving me advice to be someone that I want to model them in that aspect, okay? So if I want to be a better person, I look at Jesus, okay? But if I want to be, for example, better with money, I might look at Warren Buffett. If I want to be happier, again, I'm going back into the Bible. You want to go to the place where the people that are actually giving you advice, that's the people you kind of want to model. And to add a little caveat in here, you also want to learn to be content. Content with a lot, content with nothing. And the content person tends to get further in life overall, because it takes a lot of work to become financially free, and I do think that should be a goal for a lot of people, for most people, because it's very doable, it's very possible. And you know, the society kind of tells you, go into debt, you get this, you get that. But if you kind of just do, for example, some delayed gratification, you're able to actually, you know, build up to financial freedom. And why wouldn't you want financial freedom? Okay, so once you figure it out, and the steps are very simple, and you have, for example, be debt free, save for emergencies, start investing into retirement, and you buy a home, try to pay it off easily or faster, and you get there. That's a 10-15 year plan, by the way, but it sounds easy on paper, because it is. And the things that tend to be worth it in life, they're very simple to explain, but very hard to execute and take a lot of sacrifice. But it's definitely worth it. Guys, overall, those are the 3 main lessons that I got when it comes to the Bible, when it comes to money. And there's one last one that I also want to give here, that when you give, you're not given in vain. You're not planting in, for example, a field that's just dry and nothing else is going to happen. No, it actually makes a lot of sense. So you give to the poor, you give to the church, and when you give with an open heart. You know, you never want to feel like you're forced to give something that you're going to need, because it's not really given. It's like there's a story in the Bible when the guy lied about what he actually gave and what he actually got. He died. And also the lady, his wife, also died, you know. So my point, you're probably not gonna die, but my point is, okay, just when you give with an open heart, give what you can actually give freely, and be happy to actually give. You know, the Bible calls us to give in sacrifice. There's a difference between giving in sacrifice and giving an amount where you feel like, I really can't do this, but I'm gonna do it because of this. You know what I mean? So learn the word, read it very well, and you do the right thing. Okay. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Comment down below any questions. If you have other questions, other videos you want me to do, the answer is let me know and I'll get to work. But there are a lot of videos on this channel when it comes to investing, when it comes to paying off debt, when it comes to buying your first home. And when I bought my first home, it was a process, and I have videos on that too on this channel. So check that out also. As always, guys, like, subscribe, hit the bell to get notified, comment down any questions. And if you made it all the way to the end of the video, comment down below word, so I know you made it all the way to the end of the video. That's WORD, word. As always, peace out. Video, subscribe, peace. Long-term team out.